So good day everyone. Today, we will now be presenting to you the ethical and social responsibilities of an entrepreneur. But before we start, I would like first to introduce our team consisting of Miss Leonelyn De Terra, Miss Princess Napoles, and I, Sheila May Frihas as your topic presenter. So let us now start. So for the content of this presentation, first, we will define what is business ethics. Second are the different factors that influences ethical behaviors of business owners, business entities, employees, but particularly entrepreneurs. Third is how ethical behavior is encouraged. Fourth is the definition of code of ethics. And fifth are the different ethical issues facing entrepreneurships. So as for the objectives of this discussion, at the end of this presentation, students are expected to first, define what is business ethics. Second is be able to identify the different factors that influences ethical behavior. Third is to learn how to encourage ethical behavior. Fourth is to define what is code of ethics. And fifth, determine the different ethical issues faced in entrepreneurships. So to start this discussion, I am Sheila May Frihas, your first presenter. So before we define what is business ethics, let us first define what is ethics. So when we say ethics, it is a moral principle or moral standards that governs an individual's behavior and conduct when it comes to doing a certain activity. Which is this definition can also be applied when it comes to business ethics, because business ethics refers to the standards for morally right and wrong conduct in businesses. So if ethics is more focused on the moral standards for morally right and wrong for personal opinions or for personal purposes, business ethics are a set of policies or standards that is appropriate when it comes to establishing and managing a business. So business ethics involves implementing appropriate business policies and practices with regard to arguable, controversial subjects. So as I mentioned earlier, it is more focused on implementing appropriate business policies and standards, especially when it comes to arguable, when it comes to sensitive and controversial subjects in the business industry. So now that we have already discussed and defined what is business ethics, let us now move on how to determine the different ethical behaviors that is required for entrepreneurs. First is we have the public. Actually, the public plays a big part or plays a significant role when it comes to determining what kind of ethical behavior, what kind of behavior, what kind of conduct, and what are the standards that an entrepreneur or a business entity should follow in managing or establishing their businesses. Because the public has the power to make suggestions, to make comments, and to give feedbacks to everything that business entities show to everyone. So next is we have the interested groups. So when we say interested groups, it has a wide range because there are different groups existing within a certain place or a certain country. So this may involve government agencies, NGOs or non-government organizations, private organizations, and every other kind of organizations that are concerned in the ethical behavior or ethical practices of every businesses existing in the business industry. So next is we have the business organizations. So when we say business organizations, it is more concerned in the business industry. It is more concerned in the business world. So because business industry plays a big part in determining what kind of ethical behavior or what kind of ethical practices should an entrepreneur possess in order to survive in the business industry, especially when it comes to entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are new to business industry. Mostly entrepreneurs are new to business industry. So so business organizations creates different connections. It creates different connections to every other business organizations in order to determine what kind of ethical behavior should a business owner possess in order to survive the industry. So next is we have the individual's personal morals and values. So when we say personal morals and values, it is mostly referring to the personal beliefs of every individual. It refers to the personal values in life of every individuals, or most commonly it refers to the individual differences of every individual, because every individual has different beliefs that may be not for others. Like there may be some ethical standards set by the government and set by the company that is not appropriate according to the personal morals of the individual doing the work. And also, there are some ethical behaviors that may be right for the person or for a certain individual, but do not comply with the set standards by the government and by the company. So individuals' morals and values plays a big part in determining the ethical behaviors or practices that is possessed by every entrepreneur in the business industry. Next is adherence to the ethical standards contributes to the smooth flow of business exchanges. It establishes trust between buyers and sellers and between lenders and borrowers. So I have here a figure which shows the effect of adherence to ethical standards. Shown in the figure, it starts with adherence to ethical standards by the entrepreneurs. And after adhering to the different ethical standards, it can lead to establishment of trust between buyers and sellers and between lenders and borrowers. So when the trust is already established between different parties, it will result to the smooth flow of business exchanges. For example, is the selling will be a lot faster. So this figure only show that through adhering or through compliant with the different ethical standards can create harmony or can create a trust between the two parties that can lead to a smooth flow of business exchanges, which can also include the easier business transactions between different parties in the industry. So now that we have already discussed what is business ethics, we have already discussed on how to determine what kind of ethical behavior is required for an entrepreneur, and we also discussed the effect of adhering to the different ethical standards. Let us now move on to the second topic, which is the factors influencing ethical behavior. So there are actually different factors that can influence ethical behaviors. It may be personal, it may be a standard set, it may be a belief, or anything that can influence ethical behaviors of every individual. But here we have first the situation. So the situation can greatly influence the ethical behavior of every individual, because different situations need a different decision making. So when it comes to ethical standards, the reaction of an individual depends on what kind of situation he or she is in. That's why a situation or a circumstance plays a big part in plays a big part or plays a big influence when it comes to the ethical behavior of every individual. Next is we have the individual differences. As I have mentioned earlier, this involves the moral values, moral beliefs, and moral standards of every individual, because every individual has different beliefs, every individual has different standards. That's why it can greatly influence the ethical behavior of an individual. Next is we have the reward system. Reward system mostly this is practiced in companies with employees. Companies with employees, because reward system can greatly influence or can greatly impact the behavior and conduct of every employee in different businesses or in different company, because reward system can let the employees know that their work is appreciated, their work is recognized. That's why it can also influence their behaviors when it comes to business and work. Next is we have the other factors, which involves the legislation, the government rules and regulations, the ethical code of the company, and the ethical climate of the industry. So actually, the first three, which is the legislation, the government rules and regulations, and the ethical code of the company, all refers to the standards set by the government and by the company that should be followed by every employee or every business owner that exists. While the last one, which is the ethical climate of the industry, depends on what situation is the business or the industry is in. It depends on what kind of flow that the business have, what kind of competition does the business have, because these factors can influence the behavior of not just the employees but the owners of the businesses. So the last sentence says that the circumstances as well as reactions of individuals and firms vary. So this is what I have mentioned earlier in the situation part, because as I have said earlier, different situations need different reactions. That's why individuals react differently in the different situation or different circumstances that they are in. That's why circumstances and reactions of individuals vary. So now that we are already done in discussing the different factors that can greatly influence or can greatly impact the ethical behavior of every other businesses, business owners, and employees, let us now move on to the next topic, which is how ethical behavior is encouraged. So, there are actually certain ways on how to encourage ethical behaviors among employees. First is we have the adaptation of code of ethics. This will be discussed in the next slide. Second is the institution of rewards and punishments concerning ethical behaviors. So, I have already mentioned this earlier in the previous topic. It involves the reward system. Okay? The reward system set by the company. Third is the adaptation of internal programs for resolving conflicts. So when we say internal programs, it is the set of standards created by the company in order to resolve any conflicts or to manage the internal affairs of the business. Fourth is we have the creation of training in ethics review committee. This involves the creation of the ethics review committee that will review the different ethical standards that should be set or should be implemented in the company. Fifth is we have the provision of training in ethics for employees. So this involves teaching the employees or giving the employees the training in order to adapt with the ethical standards or the ethical behaviors that is required in the industry. And sixth is the top management support. So this part I will not be discussing this further because the next presenter, which is Miss Princess Napoles, will be discussing this further. So that's end my topic, and thank you.
Hello, I am Princess Napoles and I will be your second discussant for this session and I will be talking about Code of Ethics. So first, let us define what is Code of Ethics. It is a formal document indicating entrepreneurship's adopted principles of appropriate behavior. In other words, Code of Ethics is simply a company set of guidelines, standards, and principles that must be adhered by its members to promote professionalism, integrity, and honesty. It can also be used as a reference in making big or small decisions. It can be made effective if the following requirements are met. So first, it should refer to a specific unethical practices such as receiving gifts, avoiding warranty claims, and etc. Next is that it must be supported by the top management since the top management must always take the lead in being ethical or else the employees will not perform it as well. So next, ethical behavior of personnel occurs only when the entrepreneur develops a code of ethics and successfully implements it. So, meaning in order to have an ethical behavior, you must also learn first the code of ethics and successfully implement it. Next is rewards, punishment, and ethical behavior. If the entrepreneurs wants to have some measures to control over the behavior of its personnel, a system of reward and punishment must be instituted because in some instances, implementing simple regulation or standard is not enough to motivate the employees to conform on such standard. That is why it is important to establish a reward system to encourage these employees to behave ethically and so as implementing punishment in order for them to conform on this set of regulations. Next is internal programs for solving conflicts. Conflicts arise even when ethical conduct of personnel is concerned. It is important for entrepreneurs to adopt to a program of resolving conflicts. The set of standards established in the Code of Ethics can also be used in solving ethical dilemma. That is why incorporating internal programs for the solving conflicts in the Code of Ethics is essential. Like for example, an employee is concerned on why he wasn't being able to be promoted and suspects that the reason for it is that his supervisor is behaving unethically. If the company will provide means to ventilate the grievance of the employee and will let both sides explain their part, then the dilemma will be solved without causing any harm or hard feelings between the two. Next is that ethics review committee must also be established. Usually it is composed of company employees and sometimes not a company employed but has undergone special training in ethics. They are concerned in giving advice about sensitive ethical issues. Although it is not yet popular in most areas in our country, some of our government corporations like university are gradually adopting it in order to promote ethical conduct. Next is provisions of training in ethics. This training should make the employees be sufficiently prepared to deal with various ethical issues that might encounter in their respective workplaces. And the next is top management support. Support coming from the top management will help in order for the activities and programs to succeed. As mentioned earlier, support of management, especially the top management, is needed in order to successfully implement the regulations set.
The next topic is all about ethical issues facing entrepreneurships. Entrepreneurs face ethical questions on daily basis from the following relationships. First is a relationship between the company and the customers, company and its personnel and employees, between the company and its associates, and between the company and the investors and the financial community. Number one is relations with customers. Entrepreneurs should provide support for consumer rights, which are as follows.
To be safe, consumers expect that the products and services that they will buy will do no harm. For example, any manufactured drugs or medicine must be approved by the Department of Food and Drugs Administration before being sold to the general public. Next is informed, right to be informed. The quality of their decisions will depend on whether or not they are properly informed. This is just basically feeding the customers with the information they needed before purchasing the product. For example, the manufacturing and expiration date, ingredients, and in some cases, a warning of some ingredients that might trigger the allergy of the customer. Next is right to choose. Firms that adhere to the business ethics should strive to protect customers' right to choose on what products or services they need. Next is right to be heard. Customers have the right to communicate their concerns, whether it is expressing appreciation or providing information about defects in the products. This can be done in establishing a system that receives and processes complaints. An example of this is when the information like a contact number or an email address is printed on the product's label, wherein the customer is free to leave comments and suggestions freely.
Good day everyone, I am Leoneline G. Tera and I will discuss the continuation of ethical issues facing entrepreneurship. Relations with personnel and employees. Employees and personnel are important assets in the business. They help businesses increase profits, bring new ideas and innovation, and they are the foundation of the business. Without employees, the business or the organization will not succeed. But there are instances that business firms, including entrepreneurship, commit unethical acts towards their employees. Since entrepreneurs and their staff are the one that makes decisions on different business activities, such as hiring, promotion, compensation, transfer, and dismissal, and it is not unusual for ethical lapses to happen every now and then. Business should recognize the unique positions of their employees, and good ethical conduct requires entrepreneurs to be aware of their responsibilities to employees, such as providing workplace safety. An ethical entrepreneur should make sure that the workplace is safe for employees. There should be an adequate measure to prevent accidents from happening in the factory or in offices. In workplace, sufficient ventilation must be maintained. Machines and chemicals must be handled by properly trained personnel. Providing safe and healthy atmosphere in the work environment conducive to physical and moral well-being and growth of employees. The next one is quality life issues. Entrepreneurships can go further helping its workers improve their quality of life by offering flexible work arrangements. They shall promote work-life balance. Maintaining work-life balance helps reduce stress and helps prevent burnout in the workplace. Another responsibility of entrepreneurs towards their employees is to avoid discrimination. Discrimination in the workplace generally occurs when a decision is made against an employee due solely to the employee's possession of certain characteristics or membership in a certain group, which are not job relevant. As there can be many characteristics of persons that can be the basis of discrimination, there can be many kinds of discrimination as well. But the most common forms involve gender, race, age, sexual orientation or preferences, religion, and physical features. These factors should not be allowed to affect any person's chance to get employed or promoted because everyone has the right to work in a place where discrimination is not practiced. Another responsibility of entrepreneur is to prevent sexual harassment. Sexual harassment refers to unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical contact of a sexual nature. Entrepreneurs have the moral responsibility of keeping the workplace free from sexual harassment and where everybody is treated fairly. To prevent sexual harassment, the entrepreneurs needs to do the following. Issues a specific policy statement prohibiting sexual harassment. Develop a complaint procedure for employees to follow. Create a work environment that encourages sexually harassed employees to report their experiences. Establish committee to investigate sexual harassment claims and take disciplinary actions against harassers. Relations with business associates. Entrepreneurships operate in conjunction with the effort of supplier, agents, and various types of middlemen. In this case, business transactions between parties may arise some ethical questions. For instance, a supplier who badly needs a contract may attempt to bribe the company's purchasing officer. Another example would be the company's sales manager extending favors to a trader by giving priority to deliver in exchange for personal use. Those practices mentioned are unethical and must not be allowed to happen in a company that upholds good ethical conduct. Relations with investors and the financial community. Investors helps in overcoming financial hurdles which boost the confidence of the business, provide support to push forward and achieve the company's goal. The country's financial system survives partly because investors and other parties have placed a certain degree of trust in the firm they deal with. The degree of trust is maintained at a high level if the investors and the financial community feel that the business firms practice good business ethics, especially if they think that their investments are well protected. In this case, the desired level of investment is maintained. However, trust and confidence are eroded by wrongdoings of some firms. Those investment scams done by some scheming people do not provide good examples of ethical firms. Misrepresentations concerning the financial health of the firms, land swindles, embezzlement, and misleading reports about non-existent assets are some of the unethical and illegal practices that undermine our country's financial stability. It is to be the best interest of companies, including entrepreneurship, to continue to be blessed with a stable financial system, and this will only be possible if the companies behave ethically.